This is What a week.
What a week. PoliTricks.
Eita, welcome to another episode of Wow, What a Week. #PoliTricks. This week, Mabuza bows out, but the SAPS steal the headlines. MKHWANAZI is spilling tea. BRICS are beefing and Kenya's burning while Trump brings tariffs. Welcome to this week's episode with Fresh and Botsang.
Bro, Fresh, good morning. I like it the way you introduce them. Since Trevor and Keleto says we sometimes take too much time on one topic. But I'm good, brother man. Good morning to you and the followers and the viewers.
I did that for a tider, so we stick to what we said we're going to do.
Okay.
Friend.
I wonder if we'll win. I can't complain, you know. So I'm in a peace mode. I'm in a peaceful mode, and I was thinking about something, whether material brings happiness or happiness brings material. I know I'm being philosophical. Once your mind is at peace and happy, everything else can be conceived.
I don't chase happiness. Nah, I chase peace. Because you can be at peace whether you have money or not.
Yes.
So for me, peace is paramount.
That's it, my brother.
So I protect my peace, and I will do that whether I have money or not.
Jealously so.
Because if you're at peace, then you'll be fine.
More money, more problems.
There's also that. And no money also means you're stranded at the Durban July after Moreki leaves you. So
I don't go into such things. I've been to Durban July once with my kid brother Papi, and I vowed, it was in 2012, never again.
Sure.
I was a misfit. I will never do that. I don't go to such things.
Let's move to our first stories.
Yes, sir.
The passing of former Deputy President DD Mabuza, obviously overshadowed by what's happening with the police. But let's start with DD.
Yes. Well, it was sad news. Mr. President Mabuza, and people say why I say president, because when there's deputy, like ministers, you call them minister. You address them as ministers. You don't call them Mr. Deputies. Mr. President, the late Mabuza, he was very young, Tato, very energetic guy. But, it came back to the old story that he was once poisoned in his life. And he was getting treatment in Russia. And it looks like then came back again if one has to go through the media reports. That thing did not leave the system because apparently once it happened in only Russia, I don't know why, in the world can treat, body and blood poisoning.
Isn't it because for the longest time, poison so now they know how to treat it?
Yeah, well, when you say, people must understand, we don't say Mabuza, we mean the Russians. Yes. Well, yeah, probably, to create a poison, you must also have an antidote.
Absolutely.
One of your agents swallows it by mistake.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at, stories where people have been poisoned with Novichok, polonium, it's always from the east there.
Yeah, anyway, it's a sad story. Actually, today on Saturday, it will be the official, state funeral with full military honors. They call it a level 2 state funeral. But look, the cat, as he used to call himself, Ikati. When you listen to the ANC, even non-ANC people, the EFF has honored many people to say, he served the country. He was a mathematics school teacher. And Ntate Mabuza is well respected in Mpumalanga. The people of Mpumalanga, in my observation, are saying he served that province, particularly when he was a premier. But even when he was the deputy president of the country, he never looked down or forgot his, home and the people. So they hold him very high. Albeit there are obviously in politics, there'll be dark clouds. Many will remember him for being mentioned several times in many corruption scandals. Albeit none of them have been proven or he never faced prosecution. But for me, in politics, the highlight of the cat is when he truly behaved like a cat during the Nasrec conference, the famous Nasrec conference.
And I think Nasrec was pretty much the height of him reminding people of how much he swelled the ranks of the ANC Mpumalanga.
Absolutely. Tato will also recall that it was for President Zuma to rise in Polokwane,
Sure.
which was 2 conferences before NASRI. It was 2007. It was him who was in the forefront with the premier of the Free State, Ntate Magashule, and the premier of the Northwest Province, Mahumapelo.
Yeah.
Supra Mahumapelo. And people were wondering why were they called the Premier League. It is because the 3 premiers, led by David Mabuza, orchestrated and came with the concept of picking up Jacob Zuma to rise. And they played it very well. Although at the end he said it was factionalism. He himself, I saw a video, he said it was factionalism. He regretted because he was part of the team that widened the gap in the African National Congress. But let the former Deputy President of the Republic and of the ruling ANC rest in eternal peace. He ran his race, and he did his part while he was still alive. And there's such stories going on that he wanted to go, and that's how the cat operates. One of the Sunday papers reported that he wanted to go to Russia to get treatment. And they interviewed some of the people. He asked them for money because he wanted to fly in a private jet so that it should not be picked up and cause panic. And he couldn't raise the money.
Sure, man.
To go there, and that's what the media is reporting, to say he wanted to go and get the dose of the antidote and so forth, but unfortunately couldn't raise the money. And I did not know that the deputy presidents are not having the traveling privileges
Of former presidents.
or like former presidents. They have to some little extent, but not fully. Like the former president is still entitled to use a presidential jet, to can travel, especially when it's work that has been sanctioned by the Republic or by the regional body like SADC. But yeah, and like you said, Tato, the passing of David Mabuza has been overshadowed by other things in the country. But I'm happy that the state has afforded him the full military honors funeral. He deserves it in my books.
There was a big debate happening on Talk Radio 702 on Bongani Bingo show on Wednesday morning, talking about do we speak ill of the dead, or do we, let sleeping cats sleep?
Is it cats or because it's a cat? This is you always catch me with this comment. Look, Tato, once you are a public figure, especially a politician, I wouldn't say people are speaking of the dead. Customarily or traditionally, we're taught not to do that.
Absolutely.
We're brought up in that manner as Africans. But we can't shy away from the fact that the world has evolved. And things are happening in the world. And once you're in a public figure, yes, somebody at home or in the community who's not a public figure, but it will always come up. And I don't think it's the ill. I think it's people saying none of us as human beings are perfect.
Sure.
And in the good we did, there's other, shortfalls
We
of
also
life.
tripped up or
And all that.
or messed
And
up.
for example, one of my biggest memories of DD Mabuza, I don't even think it's negative or ill, that he always swayed his vote, and his Mpumalanga, led by him, always swayed the elections. Even if my preferred candidate in the ANC will lose against him, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's politics. That's how you play. Whoever makes sense to you at that moment. I mean, in Nasrek, we know that he changed and he told his group to change and vote for President Ramaphosa's faction, or you might call it slate, instead of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's slate. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's how politicians operate. I think that's how they play.
The way I reason it, I always reason that if you didn't have the balls or the heart or the guts to have an opinion about someone when they were alive, why would you all of a sudden have it when they're dead?
Exactly.
I'm about consistency. So if you're consistent about, I think Botsang is a horrible person,
Yes.
then I'm not going to be surprised when Botsang passes away and you say Botsang was a horrible person. But if you've said nothing about Botsang all this time and all of a sudden another opinion,
Your opinion.
now for me that's problematic. But if you're consistent about your opinions about people, I will grant it to you, whether or not I believe in speaking ill of the dead or not.
Yes.
At least you are consistent. You're not jumping onto some train. All of a sudden, because the train is Amaya, you're going to jump onto the train.
Or the person is not there to can respond or defend themselves.
Hence, scary. If you didn't have the balls to do it when they were alive, why would I like now that they can't answer for themselves?
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, let's move on to the MKHWANAZI media briefing. SAPS dirty laundry going public.
Aish. A movie.
Yeah. So basically, KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla MKHWANAZI has exposed deep divisions and alleged political interference in policing. What are your views on this? Because obviously there are people who are saying, why have a whole press conference? Why have armed officers next to you in the press conference? Why are you dressed in army fatigues? There's been a lot said. Why not follow the right channels?
Whose channels? The channels of the same people we're exposing.
And like the ANC Youth League said, why not arrest a person if a person has broken the law?
Well,
Why grandstand?
Fresh, I think the Youth League leader, I don't know whether he's the secretary or the president, I think he must sometimes apply his mind before you talk. Why not a press conference? What stops MKHWANAZI or anybody else who can go on a press conference? But I've broken this matter into three phases.
Okay.
The first one, I'm not going to really concern myself with what you call it when the chemo, the semantics, those things that means nothing to me. But just to mention it is on record that General MKHWANAZI was actually the head of that unit with that military style.
Oh, yes.
A chemo. That is the uniform of the South African Police Service. That is the uniform he last wore before he became the provincial commissioner. And you remember at some stage he acted as the national commissioner. And that was the last combat or operational position he occupied. And that is not a military uniform. That is the South African Police Service Combat Task Force uniform. So it was a correct uniform. But those people are still under him. For me, what does it say? You call them optics. For me, it was not just optics. I think it was demonstration of unity amongst the KwaZulu-Natal team that is heading. Because it was the blue normal uniform police with the assistant commissioners and generals in the captains of police stations and the combat team that we know it has been very notorious for getting into ambush or into, deadly killings of supposed to be criminals who are taking policemen when they are about to be arrested. So I think Lieutenant General MKHWANAZI was demonstrating that he has rallied and he's got his people behind him. They are united in trying to fight crime. That's my reading of it. The second part it's why the media. I mean, guys, Mr. MKHWANAZI was raising these issues as a national dialogue, actually, when you look at it. You know what I said, Fresh? I said General MKHWANAZI brought South Africa into a national dialogue without spending a cent. Unlike the national dialogue we are supposed to go into to look at various challenges of the country. He brought us international dialogue. One, security. Two, there was no money spent and we are debating this from the president, from top to bottom. Three, there's a very important element. His media briefing demonstrated that it is not just the problem in the police. You understand? He mentioned the judiciary. He mentioned MPs who are involved, not in their names. So that is the legislative. Then he mentions a minister with the executive authority. I've always been saying there's no independence in these three supposed to be independent arms of the state. I've said it many times on this platform and various platforms. General MKHWANAZI stands there and say, a minister is corrupt or is involved into activities and engagements with corrupt criminals.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes. That's one. Two, He says there are MPs. He alleged that some member of parliament, he didn't mention names and from which political party, are involved with the legislative authority. And he says they connive to such an extent that they even influences prosecutors, magistrates, and judges. That's the third arm of the state. Now there's a national dialogue for me. And I say to people, when you're frustrated, I've been in the civil service for almost 30 years. And I found myself, on a bedrock. And there's a rock in front of me and on the side. What do you do when you arrive at a stage? It's not ill-disciplined. It is a disciplined, ethical civil servant who is saying, I've tried my level best to confine myself within the parameters of the law.
So are you saying that this was him saying, I don't know who to trust, so I'm going to just blow this thing open?
Yes, I don't know. And I think it helped us as a nation because you could have easily, look, you are complaining about the Deputy National Commissioner of the Police, who is Mr. Shadrach Sibia. He's a Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Intelligence. You are complaining, you have issues with Crime Intelligence Unit that is heading. You are complaining that the Minister of Police is allegedly having contact and communication with drug dealers and crime kingpins. Now, who are your principals? Your primary principal is the police commissioner if you are a provincial commissioner. Provincial commissioners report to the national commissioner. The national commissioner, just like DGs, this is another part that people do not understand. The commissioners of state entities and the DGs, like DGs, and to some instances, like the public protector, the AG, they are appointed by the president of the republic.
Sure.
They are not appointed by the ministers. So they are primary political principals. It is it is the president. So Commissioner Masemola, who is the direct line manager of Lieutenant General MKHWANAZI, reports to President Ramaphosa. Now, when MKHWANAZI stands there and say, but I don't trust the system. I don't trust this ABC. He hasn't mentioned anything about Masemola. What do? You don't have a direct line to the president. You are frustrated. You understand? And then News 24 and other media houses, they actually even go and create a pattern that demonstrates how the president may be indirectly involved in this. I don't know if you saw that on News 24.
Yes. It's the organogram.
Or
family tree, as they called it. Yes.
Where they link it would have been a step-grandson of President Ramaphosa, a link to the business people that have been mentioned into this. So I think, and I may be wrong, but I am convinced that Mr. MKHWANAZI knew what he was doing. He had spent time gathering evidence. He read WhatsApp.
So are you saying he's got receipts wherever he is?
Look,
otherwise he wouldn't have done it.
He would have not done this. At his level, the man is very educated, well-decorated, and well-experienced. He would have never done this. You do this when you've got material evidence to back you up. People are saying he calculated by doing it strategically when he was just about to be suspended for misconduct and refusing to.
Wasn't there an issue of some building rental or something?
They always bring the building rental, all those things. But it's only that he refused to literally disband the political killings task team. He refused to obey the directive of the minister.
But the minister was saying he's duplicating other work that SAPS are doing.
Why did they form it? Let me remind the viewers and South Africans how this thing came. We'll vividly recall that it was when a Mr. Ikunu, not the Minister of Police, the previous minister, Premier of KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes.
In the around 2015, 2016, when there were political killings, mainly in KZN, followed by Gauteng, they asked the president, who was President Zuma at the time, to say, look, this thing of political killing is no longer in and ANC. It's across the board. It shows elements of corruption, involvement of state machinery. Can there be an investigation into this? At that time, President Zuma, with the request of the former Premier Nkunu, then establish a commission of inquiry. Then we advocate Moirani, the senior counsel commission, it's called the Moirani Commission, which came with recommendations. One of the, and I'm saying fresh, one of the recommendation of Moirani Commission was that a special political killing force must be formed in the Republic of South Africa, which included, in some instances, special investigators, a flying squad, combat teams, special task force. That team was not formed by a mere MKHWANAZI team. It was various teams that were brought in. That was formed in 2018 under President Ramaphosa, and it is a presidential declaratory. Now this is where I have a problem. When that was formed, the two past presidents, Zuma and Ramaphosa, were involved. So President Ramaphosa formed this task team. Do we think it's correct that it's being disbanded by a minister? That's the questions that we should be asking. It was formed by the president. Why is it being disbanded by this minister? 2018 to 2025, it's 7 years. We have seen successes, and nobody has complained that they're not succeeding. And we have seen successes of arrests and some prosecutions and all that. Why do you want to disband it? Have we solved the political killings? But now, the other problem that threats MKHWANAZI into the dirty linen of this thing is they are saying it started overstepping or overlapping into now getting involved into other criminal activities like drug trafficking. And it's clear, drugs and assassination of athletes and, or what do you call it, musicians and superstars and celebrities. But if you are investigating, and I'm trying to apply my mind, and you stumble upon another crime.
Another crime, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? You were investigating the killing of Makaka. I'll make an example. Then you find that, no, but the people who killed Makaka, they're involved in drug trafficking. And then when we investigate them, they're also involved in killing celebrities and musicians. You wouldn't say that's not my part. That's not how law enforcement work. Especially when you are a special force. You will try and make a link in the form of a triangle of saying, how is this connected?
Yes.
And what's wrong with that? For me, a law enforcer, I don't care you're a traffic official or you're a peace officer or a policeman or what, I don't care. If you're a law enforcer and you stumble upon crime, you act.
Sure.
You will hand over after. And if that unit of political killings had done his job and they say, now your time has come, why hand over the incomplete dockets and files to another province like Gauteng? Why? You know, those are the questions that I would ask if I'm going to sit in that. People are calling for another commission. I'm saying no. Waste of time, waste of money. General MKHWANAZI said he's got evidence. He has given, he said after the press conference, you can have copies. I'll give you some of these things. Some are in dockets. Now I'm with the people who say, arrest. You are a policeman. You have evidence. Lay a charge and arrest. And that's what he was supposed to do. I know he has laid a charge now, but how many charges in this country have been laid against political office bearers? How many? How many have we seen being cuffed? I want to see a police constable, not even a captain, to go and arrest a commissioner or a minister and then cuff them and put them at the back of the van, you know, and then take them to the police station, take their fingerprints, open a docket, investigate it, they must apply for bail and hand them over to the NPA. If we do not do that as a nation, then we are fooling people.
Sure.
Yes, so again, President Ramaphosa, unfortunately, this happens on a Sunday. I was at a funeral. I got the years late.
He is in Brazil.
President Ramaphosa is in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil dealing with BRICS issues. And shame, sadly, and he had to respond to this, ask for calmness and for thorough investigation. All political parties have said there must be an inquiry and parliamentary process to investigate this. They're wasting time. Information will be lost. They will come with political statements and say, no, it was not, like I already say in the past week, no, it was not this Minister Mskunu, it was Minister Tsele. So you see what's going on now.
Yeah.
They're starting to point fingers at each other. But for people who are saying, President Ramaphosa wasted. I don't think he wasted time. Another thing some people were saying, he should have actually cancelled the trip in Rio and come back home immediately to deal with this national security crisis. Would it have made a difference? What could it have done if he flew back home? I think let the police do the police work, but I don't think the same security cluster of the country should be tasked with investigating themselves. You understand? I mean, in the middle of all this, again, during the past week, one of the things that's very critical that happened, the correctional services had a raid at, what do you call it, a Kosimampuru, a maximum security prison, where one of the mentioned alleged criminals is awaiting trial, is in jail. He's awaiting trial for an alleged attempted murder on the ex-girlfriend, as well as the tender of the Tembisa Hospital, corruption. And he was found with a cell phone in the cell, in a cell. Mr. Is it Brown? Their names, it's yes, it's Matlala, Mr. Matlala.
Yes, sir. There are people who are arguing that, is it a coincidence that the press conference happened?
Yes.
Then there was a Matlala link.
Yes.
Now there's a raid and the phone is taken away. The people are saying this was possibly what's on that phone, that there was a raid all of a sudden.
Look, I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
But I must say, I've been following the news.
Sure.
Before the raid on Monday or Tuesday in the Kosimampuru prison, correctional services, even the week before, they've been raiding ad hoc prisons, by the way, focusing on juvenile prisons.
So it's not a coincidence?
I think in their defense, it's not a coincidence, because few days before that, they raided another prison in Mabopane, in Odi.
Yes.
And also it was, and even a week before, they raided another prison. And I said, so I will give them the benefit of the doubt as correctional services. But you know, you go and you raid Kosimampuru where Matlala is, after Matlala is mentioned 24 hours ago, and you find him with a cell phone. And now the primary people who had that cell phone, it's correctional services officials. The right thing to do is they will hand it over to South African police services. And that's where the mess is. You're going to hand the main culprit of MKHWANAZI's dossier of press briefing is found with a cell phone in prison. That cell phone, you can imagine the kind of information that the police can extract from it that will aid the current crisis that the country is being faced. Now, we don't know who has the cell phone and what is in that cell phone. But the fact that he had a cell phone while he was in prison, it could be of aid to this whole process. But what if that aid or the contaminated aid now was implicating some of the people in the police service? Do you think they will let it go as is to the investigators? And when will we get the investigators of this matter? After Parliament has debated and they've planned properly, how are they going to mislead us in this whole thing? In a normal country, the Minister of Police would have excused himself for a moment, and all those others who I mentioned, or they're being suspended while investigations are taking place. Because you can't investigate people in a situation where they can influence and or control the investigation. It's going to be very complicated.
What are your thoughts on the reactions by opposition parties?
Look, who was the Democratic Alliance, actually, were the last to lose. I was waiting for the reaction first, but they were very careful. They were the last, actually. I like the ATM and the EFF. EFF as always, they'll be excited. We stand by MKHWANAZI this. And Julius Malema during the I think that's the Human Rights Day celebrations or one of the recent events spoke of MKHWANAZI, how we need police, how we need policemen like Lieutenant General MKHWANAZI. But ATM comes with African Transformation Movement comes with a much more logical proposition to say, let it be debated in Parliament, but the President must act.
Yes.
On the other hand, let these processes run parallel. We cannot waste time on this before more people die or before the evidence is being wiped off. You understand? So I think I will align more to it. But all others, I think they've rallied behind. People are saying he was ill-disciplined generally, but I think political parties have rallied. Controversies and EFF, they've come very strongly to rally behind General MKHWANAZI.
On Tuesday, the MKPs Duduzile, Zuma, Sambutla put on an Instagram stories a picture of MKHWANAZI. And the caption is, "Let them touch you. We are ready for round 2." What do you think that means?
You see, again, Duduzile, round 2 of what? You see,
Hence, I'm asking you, what do you think he's talking about?
Look, round 1, we know, and people will say there's a reckless speculation. I assume round 1 meant the July 2021 unrest. When they touched President Zuma and jail President Zuma.
But hold up, didn't JZ fire him though?
Yes, actually, I don't know why do people say JZ fired MKHWANAZI. He was the acting national commissioner.
Okay.
If my memory serves me well, he was already, and then he was then deployed to be the provincial commissioner. He was holding on. But people are saying he has had skirmishes and there's been tension between him and Jacob Zuma, and therefore people didn't expect controversies, particularly Duduzile, to can defend and stand with General MKHWANAZI. But you know what does it say to me, Fresh?
Okay, so Jacob Zuma did not fire Lieutenant General MKHWANAZI, but there was controversy around his removal as acting National Police Commissioner in 2012 during the Zuma presidency.
Exactly, that's what I recall. My memory serves me well. That you were acting, when you are acting in a position in government or in any other place, there's no guarantee that you will get the position.
In fact, MKHWANAZI was replaced by Rea Pierre.
Yes. As a permanent position. And that's when he moved back to KZN and to the task force, and he gradually grew up the ranks and they established.
But remember, even then, he'd been vocal about political interference in police leadership, even back then. So speculation was he wasn't kept there permanently because already he was making noise about the fact that there's too much political interference in the force.
The man was doing his job, Fresh. If you are doing your job, and honestly, we should be proud as South Africans that in the civil service, we still have people like General MKHWANAZI who can stand up against political office bearers, who can stand up against political interference, who are not afraid to confront criminals. And whether the criminal is a politician or a comrade or a colleague, it's immaterial for him. And that's the kind of civil servants we want.
I've actually experienced a police officer like that. When I was bussed for speeding, I think it was 2008, in Midrand. I was doing 161 in
so you above the 40 kilometer.
40 plus 1.
40 plus 1.
And the officer that stopped me, that arrested me, said, "I know who you are. Don't try and negotiate. It was me that arrested Ramaphosa when he was speeding." Remember, before Ramaphosa came back to politics, he'd been arrested for speeding.
Yes.
Same officer. He said to me, "Don't try and negotiate. I arrested Ramaphosa, so don't try and negotiate. Let's go to Midrand police station." So it's always dope to see people who do that work.
Yes,
like that.
It's and especially that the public service or civil servants, we have been painted with the same brush, all of us.
Yes.
That we are lazy, we are corrupt, and we are useless. Understand? I had criminal records in my past life. I was arrested, locked. I actually met civil servants who did not compromise from the time I'm arrested, locked up. I even tried a strategy of going to the police station with my baby. My son.
You use the baby as a shield.
Yes, they're like, you're gonna sit here
With the baby.
with the baby. You are not going to look up, call the mother or the aunt to come and fetch the baby. You are not leaving.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, the mother is working night duty. They're like, call her.
Yeah.
And I told them, she's in the military. She's a captain. I'm like, we'll even go and fetch her to come and take them.
But where now you're
now you are looking at, they locked me up, went through prosecution.
Yeah.
And then they sent me for correctional supervision.
Yeah.
I told the story before. You must have seen the report written by the correctional services officer who actually wanted us to pray before. He interviewed me and I prayed with a very bad heart. And because he was trying to take me through correctional supervision. But I didn't compromise. That guy wrote a report. When we went back to court, he said to the magistrate, this guy is not showing remorse. And therefore...
He won't even pray.
I'm mentioning this to show that there are civil servants in South Africa who
solid.
love their job, who are solid, who do their job. It's just a few of us who are brave enough to can stand up and rise against your line managers or your superiors or your political heads. Very few can do that because people think for their income, their stomachs, their children. Some people fear even for their lives. You understand? Because South Africa has become a killing machine. Almost every month, there's a civil servant who's anti-corrupt, or sometimes even somebody who's just working, just doing their job. You're not involved. You are an auditor or an investigator. You are just doing your job, and they take you out. Pardon me, but I'm saying we do have civil servants who are good, and Lieutenant General MKHWANAZI has demonstrated that there are civil servants who are like that. None of us are perfect. He may be having his own issues, but that does not mean you must not do your job.
Sure.
And I'm very proud to have a provincial commissioner. I wish we had a national commissioner who would be like him. But, again, Fresh, what gives him an upper hand? Bro, when you are a combatant, when you are not afraid of death, he went to an extent of saying, I am lucky I am doing this and I've got a gun and I can use it.
Yes.
But imagine a normal, noble South African who's exposed to drug trafficking and he can't even use a knife or a gun.
Sure.
So it says this man is prepared to lay down his life.
And he's very hands-on.
He's hands-on. No, he's an operational person.
He's very hands-on.
Yeah, he's operational.
I've heard of raids where, again, I think one thing we take for granted is the work that intelligence do. There are a lot of underworld things that are foiled, that are stopped because of intelligence.
Yes.
But we'll never hear about them because they're stopped before they even take off.
Absolutely.
And I'm told some of these raids, he's there himself to make sure that people are arrested and thrown in jail.
And to make sure that some of his lieutenants do not compromise the operation because you are there. You understand? That's another thing.
You find R1 million in cash in a box.
In a box, and then you look at each other's magic. And when you raid and you occupy a house, you don't go into one room, all 7 of you. 2 will go into one room. They found cash. They can stash it anywhere and come back to take it later. But he is there. He's going in them between the rooms. That's an operational man. It shows and demonstrates where he comes from. Those are the kind of leaders. That's why I've always said the police service needs what we call career policemen.
Yes.
If you have career policemen leading divisions.
But wasn't that the complaint about Cicely Pierre? That you're parachuting someone who's not a cop into a position that would have needed a career cop, in all honesty.
That was the complaint. You need a career when a career policeman. And look at the police commissioners. And I'm not saying anything or making any allegation that somebody was wrong. My former boss, who fought and saved my career at some stage in Tate Jackie Silebi, former ambassador to a police commissioner. Look what happened. You understand? He was even in some instances accused falsely, but because he didn't know the nitty-gritties and the scalemship of police and how to maneuver and to play around in there, he did not have that.
He didn't have the smarts.
Of how police operate.
Of policing, yes.
And then he becomes a police commissioner. Then he becomes a leader of Interpol. Boom. He finds himself in the middle of the Glenaglotis, drug traffickers, international syndicates, and because he was not trained for that, get people who are trained for the job and deploy them to those positions to be heads. Then they can transfer their skills to their subordinates. Don't go and take a Botsang who's a paper pusher in administration and make him an admiral in the Air Force or in the Navy. I mean, I can't even swim. Imagine if I become an admiral in the Navy when you can't swim.
They'll use it as an example. Don't be like Admiral Moiloa. Let's actually swim across the pond to Brazil.
Yes, sir.
Unity on paper, but division in practice. Generally, BRICS agree that we must deepen trade relations.
Yeah.
There's been the agreement, and that there must be shared payment systems. But India is like, but the currency, guys, and easy.
Emanganyana. But what did I say last? Is it last week when we closed with, I was said my fear.
Yeah.
It's how India will conduct them. But before we go into the BRICS discussion.
And in fact, on top of that, Trump obviously the other day was sending letters out about tariffs.
14 countries, we are one of them.
Exactly what, 30%?
Yeah, we are on 30%.
On certain goods.
No, on all goods.
No, there are metals that have been exempt. The metals that they need the most, that side, have been exempt.
However, you must see the strategic part they do it. It's on all, okay, that's the word I must use, on all consumable goods.
Exactly.
That's the way.
That will affect our farmers.
Yeah,
and,
citrus. And people are concerned about the USA is our leading consumer of macadamia nuts and citrus. Understand, maybe our wine, it's a big market.
But obviously Trump went over and above that and said there'll be an additional 10% tariff hike on any nation that deals with BRICS.
With BRICS, yes.
Countries, because BRICS, it's like a child. Because BRICS don't like us.
Don't like America.
Long and the short. And you know, it's a similar argument to people who likened black consciousness to white hatred.
Yeah.
And it's, if me and you want to be friends, it doesn't mean we hate our neighbor. We just find mutual ways of engaging as nations. And no one should even have the audacity to want to say, because I'm the big guy here, I've got the biggest guns.
I don't know if President Trump went through Mojolo like we did before we get married. I always said to people, and I bring it to politics.
Yeah.
When you go and you marry Miss B,
Yeah.
and you had a relationship a few years before with Miss S or Miss P, it does not mean you hate those other two, you don't like them. It means you chose to go with this one into a marital process. And if countries choose, BRICS Plus choose to say, we've been doing business with the West, we've been under AGOA, we've been doing business with the EU. However, we want to look at other options that are available, and America is doing the same.
Sure.
Have you noticed that in those tariffs, with the exception of Iran, those letters, never, ever, Trump has ever went against the OPEC countries, oil-producing countries that are trading with the BRICS countries.
Yes.
And even if they are not BRICS, some have applied to be members. He's not touching those because he's benefiting of oil and other things. I don't know who gave who a jet and these things like that. But coming back to the BRICS summit in Rio that ended during the course of this week, and thanks President Ramaphosa is back home, it's the issue of, you know, it's said fresh, and we spoke about it earlier, not today, few weeks back. I spoke about the division of Africa, especially with the arrival of Egypt and what is the other countries, Egypt and Ethiopia, as member states of the BRICS Plus. Ne? BRICS, as the South-South cooperation countries, have been pushing that countries of the South must go and occupy permanent seats or seats of the United Nations Security Council. Now, obviously, BRICS has been rallying behind South Africa, having been the only member in Africa. Now, Ethiopia and Egypt have come. Can you believe that the reason the BRICS summit this week that we are closing did not sign off the communique? Because after every summit, they must sign a communique. First, the economic Sherpas of BRICS, a month ago, they didn't issue a communique because they couldn't agree. That's when India started saying, wait a little bit about the dollarization and introducing the currency. But now they couldn't sign this one of the only thing they fully agreed upon is let's trade together, as well as the support or in condemning Israel and the U.S. on attacking Iran. That's all. On fundamental issues that BRICS exist for, they couldn't agree. One of them is, imagine everybody else supported South Africa to occupy the, what you call it, the United Nations Security Council, because one of the countries of the global South and in Africa must be there. Guess who opposed that? Ethiopia and Egypt.
Imagine.
Yeah, and I said it a month ago, and as I mentioned two reasons and they become clear. You remember last week I said there's 4 countries in Africa that America controls, and I said Egypt. And I said, why Egypt? Because they've got one of the best military in the continent, which was funded and created by the Americans. And that's a problem, because South Africa is one of the best economy that is controlled, funded, and prepared by the United States, as well as its bodies, the IMF and all that. Now it's a battle of the economy and the military. And that's why Egypt is against South Africa occupying that position. But then you ask yourself, didn't they go to regional bodies like SADC? Didn't they go to the AU and have a consensus as African Union that who will support us? And guess what is Ethiopia's argument? And our followers and viewers can go and watch an episode of 4 weeks ago. You know what is Ethiopia's argument? Do you know that is the only country in the continent that was never colonized? And they are saying, we are pure.
Yeah.
We are the real Africans.
Absolutely.
We are the ones who must sit on that. Such arguments made countries, more than 11 countries, not to reach an agreement. But another observation that I had with the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, was that they left me, are you aware that President Xi Jinping, for the very first time, since the establishment of BRICS, it's 17 years fresh. First time President Xi Jinping didn't attend. That must be telling. President Vladimir Putin attended on video. We know why.
But he still sent his foreign minister.
The Minister of Foreign Relations, yes.
This is Lavrov.
Lavrov, yes. But we know that President Putin couldn't because, remember, he's still under the embargo for traveling and all that.
Although Netanyahu is traveling up and down with the warrants of arrest.
Yeah, but I also wanted to wonder if Putin had got into his jet and flew. Brazil will never arrest Putin. They will never do that.
Absolutely.
That's true. But even other countries, like the same Egypt, Ethiopia, and Iran sent the president, not the prime minister. They did not send head of states. They sent foreign affairs ministers or deputies. Some sent ambassadors in Brazil, the resident ambassador. And it says to me, there's a problem in BRICS. There's a very serious problem. There's crisis. And if the founders are scattered all over and they are not handling this, it will take us back to what I spoke about last year. The more you have member states, the more infiltration.
Absolutely.
There are more delays.
So you don't know who's been sent to scupper your plans.
Exactly. And it's happening. The signs are showing. You talk show. BRICS has been reduced to a lot of talk shows, no agreement, no implementation. Talk shops, yeah. When they were few, they could move, they could sign, they could agree. Things were moving. Yes. I don't say BRICS must not expand. I've always cautioned about who do you bring in.
I think maybe we must operate like they operate the Security Council. The original 4 members have veto power, so that we can get things moving. Otherwise, you're always going to be stuck because there's no consensus.
My brother, I hope Tato Jr. is going to cut that part and we send it to the BRICS website. Yeah. That's what they should have done.
Sure.
You build a firewall around you.
Yes.
You protect the nucleus of the formation of BRICS.
Absolutely.
And say the founders are permanent. The others, you're invited to a party.
Yes.
As and when we grow.
Yes.
You will be brought in and or invited to exchange in taking a permanent seat.
Absolutely.
For example, if South Africa, and I will use my country, if South Africa misbehaves, we'll go and say, Iran, you've got bigger budget, you've got a bigger population, you have been behaving for the last 5 years. Can you take South Africa's position temporarily? You understand? And I think that's what BRICS should have done.
Absolutely.
In order, they should have jealously and selfishly guarded the security of BRICS, and they failed to do that. They were excited. We have more members. We'll take from the UN and EU. That's a complete compromise. We need a bigger numbers. We need bigger economies. We spoke about Indonesia, me and you, last week. But They should have guarded selfishly and jealously against infiltration by the West. The West, especially the EU, the Great Britain, as well as the US, they're not going to sit and fold their arms and see this, cake being baked and becoming the biggest economy and the controlling the world, both economically and militarily. And when you look at BRICS member states from the regions they come from, whether it's Latin America, whether it's Africa, whether it's Southeast Asia, they also have very powerful and influential states in their regions. Diplomatically, if you look at the member states. So I think that's where the mistake happens. But I think the founders of BRICS must go to the drawing book as soon as possible. India is taking over in 2026 from Brazil. India is projected to be going to be the biggest, growing economy in the world.
Yeah, I think the economy is growing at, or is it almost
5.6%?
Yes.
Yeah, it's projected to be 5.6, followed by who? Followed by China at 4%, US 1%. Those are the projection of this Morgan. I forgot the name. There's a financial company, Morgan something. I don't know whether it's JP Morgan or are they related. But now India is having that projection. India is going to take over the reins from Brazil in 2026 of leading BRICS. But India, again, is being very careful in engaging and dealing with the United States. You understand? Now South Africa has got the letter, 30%. We must also check how these member states of BRICS, particularly the Republic of South Africa, are going to react to the threats of President Trump.
Of an additional 10%.
Of an additional 10%. We already can't cope with the 30%.
But I loved what President Ramaphosa said about it, though, that it can't be that everything now becomes might is right.
Yeah.
That we can't decide who we're going to be friends with.
Yes, yeah.
And he also dismissed the 30% tariff on South African exports, saying it's based on a mischaracterized view of trade balances, emphasizing that 77% of U.S. goods enter South Africa duty-free. And the average tariff on imports into SA is only 7.6%.
Exactly.
So where on earth would they get the 30%,
the 30% from? Yeah. And again, we all know that there are American companies, about 600 American companies operating in South Africa. That's big, bro.
That China says they can replace in 2 weeks.
You see, again, I've got another view on this whole thing. And people can cut my head off for that. But let's leave logic out. When you deal with President Trump, your logic must be on a different scale.
Sure.
President Trump is a businessman. He's far rightist, very central, and to the point of America first, and very selfish.
No, Israel first, America second.
Okay.
You must correct it.
Well, Israel owns American, controls America financially. They supply them equipment because they give them the money. But why wouldn't other heads of state, and somebody must not tell me that because America is a superpower, they've got the muscle and the money. How are we going to react to this is very important. Why wouldn't we also put our foot down and say, our goods that have been going, us joining BRICS and other regions, like the OPEC countries or the Middle East, those are markets, those are opportunities for us. Trump is closing a door for South African products or goods. He's closing the door because we don't want to play or to dance to his music. What we should be doing, and we should have done a few years back, is to start saying we are risking by being partners at BRICS or joining BRICS. We must start preparing ourselves for a war battle with the EU and the USA. What are we going to do in case the USA wakes up? And I think we failed to do that as a nation.
Yeah.
We failed to do risks and mitigation, to say, what if this happened? But I don't say it cannot be done by the moment. First you can beg a person up to a certain point and say, please, can I have this up to a certain point? But it comes a point where you draw the line and you are saying, enough, it's enough. I will look for another market. If people are going to stop driving Ford in South Africa, they were driving Omoda. Let's find a way of doing that. You understand? Right now, before we even cut ties with the US or respond heavily with a heavy-handed, the Chinese car market it's already, sweeping the South African market. We don't have a car manufacturing plant. We've got assembling plants in South Africa, and they are both Germans as well as Japanese with Toyota and Americans. And I'm saying, be brave, be bold. And say, yes, America is the second largest economy in the world, is the number one, is the number two trading partner after China with South Africa. But what can we do?
Sure.
And if we don't make those bold decisions now as a nation, don't upset Trump anymore. But anyway, even if you don't upset him, he still acts. But we must come with a plan. We must devise a plan.
Remember I said weeks ago that the long and the short is we need to start operating as if this is the worst case scenario that we're operating from. Bite the bullet, and whatever storm comes, we're anticipating it.
Yes.
If it doesn't come, we will still grow.
Yeah. That's how we should have operated in a modern day economics, dealing with different kinds of presidents, selfishly so. If Trump can go and knock in the Middle East, which for many years, except Saudi Arabia and one of the two countries like Bahrain have been friends of the US, right now he has galvanized, actually, he has rallied almost everybody in the Middle East to be friends of America, to engage with America. What stops us from doing that, engaging with them? What stops us from taking our oranges? And I don't know, macadamia oranges apparently is a very big market for agricultural farmers. And I'm glad that the Minister of Agriculture is John Steenhuisen, that Trump can relate to much better because of race. You can say, but you are going to kill the own Afrikaners that you are trying to protect.
Absolutely.
And we must play that race card. We must do the same. We must
Unashamedly.
we must put a mask. I said to people are surprised that Elon Musk is talking about forming a political party in America. Are you forgetting that he's South African? Elon Musk is from Pretoria. South Africans were very popular in one thing. When you are angry, you form a political party. Yeah. So Musk is really becoming a South African. He is USA. He is USA.
He is very.
He is showing how we do it in Mzansi. You are angry, you form a political party. He's doing it in the heartbeat of the USA, in Washington.
In fact, while we're still in DC, obviously Netanyahu was in the US.
Yes.
And apparently they're making plans about Gaza without the Gazans. But on top of that, as part of that bromance, at dinner, Netanyahu showed Trump a letter of him nominating him for a Nobel Peace Prize.
For Nobel Peace Prize.
And a lot of people are thinking, but why on earth? Let me tell you why I'm not going to oppose it. Because the Nobel Prize Committee gave Obama a Nobel Peace Prize based purely on his intentions, not on work done.
On work done.
So it's fake.
Well, look, being a rebel.
And Obama went on to prove that he did not deserve it.
He did not deserve it. Yeah, he went after he got it. He went to bomb countries and all those
and
things.
Drone strikes. No.
Yeah. But
so Trump must get his Nobel Peace Prize.
And I think he will welcome. It's going to propel him.
You're in trouble.
We are in a serious trouble.
If you think he's got a big head, you're in trouble.
No. If Trump gets, and look, who takes the Nobel Peace Prize thing seriously? I don't. On a serious note, Fresh, that thing is part of the international community that tried to create people that could control. That's what they've been doing. Even when it was awarded to former President Mandela and de Klerk, for me, it was a smoke screen. How do you allow Netanyahu? Actually, if the Nobel Prize Peace Committee was serious about peace, they should not even accept the nomination from a
warmonger.
And
a genocidist.
Yes. They should not even accept that nomination. He doesn't qualify. He's a wanted man in the world for genocide.
In fact, that's the biggest irony.
Yes.
That the guy who's responsible for the most death of children over the last 2 years on this planet.
Over how many people have been killed in Gaza? 500,000.
What, over the last
2 years?
No, it's
about
200,000.
200,000. I thought it was 500,000. Now imagine a person who was directly responsible for murdering civilians and in Gaza is now nominating the United States president, who has been
His supplier
of bombs, to say, you know, this how sick these people. And I've always said they are sick.
The Gaza Health Ministry reports 57,000 Palestinian deaths since the conflict on October 7th.
Yeah. 50,000 people, you kill them in what, 2 years? I don't know if it's 2 years already. And then you want to know, they should not even recognize that. But wait, in this world...
Women, children, and the elderly are at least 80% of the fatalities. Journalists. Over 200 journalists are dead.
It's unprecedented.
Yeah.
So I think it's how sick the world is. But don't be surprised if Donald Trump becomes on the top 5 of this and he eventually gets it. It will not surprise me. You say he must get it because Obama got it.
And he's been chasing he's been undoing everything that is good that Obama has done and also trying to outdo Obama. Yes. I think he's obsessed. He's secretly got a black man fetish.
Yeah, but I wanted to say to you, Trump actually hates Obama more than he hates Biden.
And the fact that Obama's daughters were accepted, his daughter was accepted into an Ivy League,
yes,
but his son wasn't. It's probably the same reason he's going after Harvard. He's upset with Harvard. It's not even about that they allow protest, but the fact that they allowed an Obama daughter,
and not allow his son.
And not his son who's 18 and can now switch on a computer and switch it off.
Americans deserve President Trump. He's good for them.
Let's go to East Africa.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot happening in Kenya, a lot happening in Uganda. President Museveni this week said, my party has nominated me to contest elections as president again.
Oh, yes, he finally mentioned officially now. Yes.
Officially. But he's facing rising dissent and succession speculation amidst economic strain in Uganda. And the opposition obviously are stirring again. Who's that singer who was thrown into jail or something? Bobby Wine, I think.
Yes.
Would obviously want to stand again. In Kenya, there's a revolt. The youth are saying we're tired now. Ruto must go.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening in East Africa. And it could spread like wildfire in that region because like the rest of Africa, they're dealing with economies are not in the state that they should be in. Youth unemployment is high.
We spoke of Ruto. Fresh does not much talk about Kenya. The youth of Kenya are very resilient. They're standing their ground.
I'm impressed by the youth of Kenya.
I'm very impressed. And you know that Kenyans are be seen to be naturally peaceful people. But we are forgetting that one of the biggest rebellion
the Mau Mau
in Africa is the Mau Mau rebellion. So these youth, what they are doing, actually it's in their blood.
Sure.
That we are peaceful people, but once we enter into combat or into a rebellion, we are unstoppable.
Absolutely.
And I think the Kenyan youth at this moment, they are living the life of their forefathers.
But do you think that he would step down though?
Fresh, knowing African leaders, I'm just banking on the fact that this man is still a little bit young and educated. If you love your people, this modern day politics, you're not the age of Museveni or Mugabe. Just go. I'm praying that he does. Look,
do you think
it's only how many years? He's on his third year.
Do you think him going would stop what's going on right now in terms of the youth disgruntlement, or this police chief that is possibly responsible for the death of this teacher in police custody because he'd said something negative about him on social media?
Yes.
If he threw this top cop under the bus, do you think all of this would stop?
I don't think it will stop because when this thing started, it was not only because of the teacher who was murdered in the police cells. It was an economic and tax and youth development issues. So throwing the cop under the bus, it's not actually going to solve what the youth in Kenya want.
But it could buy him time.
It could buy him time. He could be seen as a team.
Because the police death in custody is what sparked the recent
ones. Yes, that's what I look, the people are not calling only for the chief to go or to be prosecuted. They are
want him to
calling
go.
for Ruto to go, to say, look at what is happening. But again, as a politician, he has been protected by the police and the army. They know his scandals. They may end up and saying, oh, when we do our job or your dirty political work, you throw us under the bus, and they may take a step back, which is very risky politically for him.
Sure.
You asked me the question, do I think he will go? I pray he does. Knowing the history of Africa, I don't think he will go. You understand? I don't think he will go because they may end up pushing that his successor to prosecute him. You see? But then going to Uganda, okay, President Museveni, we spoke about him. I think the Ugandans are going to reject President Museveni this time unless he uses the iron fist, as he always does, to stay in power. But I think Ugandans are very tired. The violence and the uprising in Kenya may flow into the neighboring Uganda. It may influence what is happening in Uganda, what is happening in Kenya. Youth in Uganda may rise and say, our brothers and sisters next door are doing this. Therefore, President Museveni, you finish your term and go and rest. We don't want to. But did you see the most bizarre thing there? You remember Besigye, I don't know how to pronounce it, Besigye or Begis, the former leader of Uganda, is in prison. He has put his name in this week to say he's also going to contest for elections. I don't know how many more years is he still left to be in prison.
Sure.
Or if the constitution of Uganda allows that an inmate can contest for election, but he has put the name in with the IEC there.
I mean, Museveni had the constitution amended
3 times.
To allow for more presidential terms and to remove an age limit.
Yeah.
So there's no saying he wouldn't do it again.
To do what?
To disqualify anyone.
To disqualify Besigye,
That's what he needed to do.
So this challenge is, again, if you find a person like Besigye, look, to be honest, he's in prison for political reasons.
Yes.
They won't say it's political reasons.
It's not even just.
Yeah, it's not even just.
Yeah.
But the fact that he has put his name in, it says to me, he probably knows that the constitution of Uganda allows him to do that. And you see, Africa is battling with old people who don't want to retire.
Yeah.
Instead of taking care of youth and using the God-given minerals of East Africa to can develop your own youth. I mean, they should have learned from Captain Ibrahim Traore and the other guys in the Sahel region to say this is what you can do for your country, but they don't have the best interests of the people at heart.
Sure.
And for me, that's the challenge.
And we're done.
Thank you very much, Brother Fresh.
Where do we find you on social media?
botsangm@gmail.com and on social media handles at botsangm, and on WhatsApp it's 083-884-7787.
And we are done. 1 part funeral, 2 part scandal, and a dash of dictatorship. This week's episode of Wow, What a Week, coming to you from AMP Studios, downtown Johannesburg. We're part of the Africa Podcast Network. Email waw@africapodcastnetwork.com. Shout out Trevor and his crew for all of the cinematography, YBF for all of our social media, and Keletso Modisakeng, our executive producer. Thank you for being a part of today's episode. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and keep watching. Till next week, have a wow week in spite of yourselves. We're out of here.